Hey everyone, I'm Vincent.
I'm Trevor.
And we are the Anthony and Todd Show, and today we're going to be checking out the new Sun Kill Moon album, This Is My Dinner. Sun Kill Moon is a folk rock act led by singer-songwriter Mark Kozelek, who at this point in his career is known for being a verbose and long-winded individual who tells these slow, intimate, and long stories that are all a stream of consciousness. Basically, at this point in the career, he's a very polarizing artist. You either think he's a dick that just goes on for too long and strokes his ego off with his with these song lengths, or you think he's a storyteller that doesn't care how long he takes to get to that point. And he shows basically the rawest form of his character by using that length to his advantage, which I think is the spectrum I'm in, is the one that thinks he's a good storyteller, because I like how long he takes to show these stories. I like how long he takes to kind of showcase himself, because in this we get a lot of personality. We get to know what he likes and who he is. Like every album, even if this is your first Sun Kill Moon record, you'll get to know what his interests are, what his personality is, who he is as an individual, and how he interacts with the world around him. You get to know that he's a huge fan of boxing. That's one of the only three things he knows. He knows music, boxing, and sleeping and eating. That's 4, I'm sorry. You get to know a true extent of who Mark is, which I think is really cool. Sun Kill Moon's last project, Common is Light and Love Are Red Valleys of Blood, that's a long title, was for me a really awesome audio diary. Simple folk production forwarded by Mark's very kind of frail old man voice as he goes off and talks about basically his life over the course of the year, from going on tour, from talking about David Bowie's death, talking about basically how trans issues were mattered. There's just so many topics covered on the last thing, it's hard for me to kind of keep track, but it's a good 2-hour experience. The length may be off-putting, but I think it's a really enjoyable experience once you get down to the core of it. And there's some fantastic moments and hooks and some licks on there that I really enjoyed. But what I was really interested from this record is how it was going to follow that. Would it be the same style? And how would it be? Because Mark Kozelek, I don't follow Mark Kozelek as a solo artist. I've been more interested in just his Sun Kill Moon stuff. And I've only listened to Common is Light. So I haven't listened to Benji or any of his previous work. So I was interested to see how far he would take this, because I know he makes 1,000 records per year, and I was really interested to see how much stuff he could tell on this next record if he's constantly outputting music. But on this new record, This Is My Dinner, it's 1 hour and 29 minutes, 10 tracks, and it follows basically Mark on this European tour that takes place in November/December. And basically, as he's touring all these countries and very sleep deprived, he just goes on these random thoughts and outputs and just his experiences from that thing. And I think it's a really cool piece that I actually enjoy more than their last record. I had a lot of fun with this. It's lengthy, yes. It's bizarre, yes. It is the truest form of Mark, yes. But I think that's what makes it my favorite so far from them, is because it is just Mark going at it. It's just whatever's rattling around his brain, he captures it. And for most people, that could be bad. And if you don't tame it, it doesn't work. But for him, it works so well because I think he's just such an interesting guy. And yes, he does come off as I guess, sort of an asshole, but he's accepting of the fact. And he's similar to a Father John Misty type for sure. But I think his kind of humor on this, and his almost self-humiliating nature on this, especially on the track, I think Copenhagen, where he's talking about how he can't get it up anymore, I think references the fact that he's able to joke with himself and not be so tense. But what did you think about this record, Trevor? Because I was really interested to see how it's someone who hasn't experienced this before, and someone who did hate pure comedy, a record that's also very lengthy, would enjoy this.
Yeah, I hate pure comedy. It sucks. Like you said, I think the biggest thing that gets to me is the length. Like you said, the length is super off-putting, but I also think that in a way it justifies its length in the way that Kamasi Washington does. It falls more towards Kamasi than it does Culture 2.
Yeah, it's freeform too. It's very almost improvisational.
Yeah,
in a sense.
And sometimes I like things like that, but then I think after a while it wears on me. The kind of one note kind of performance wears on me. We were talking about the ranks of like what I thought of like Father John Misty and this, and I put pure comedy and then this and then God's Favorite Customer, and I think that says a lot about like what I think about the album, because I thought that pure comedy was super one note. It was very lengthy as well and just talked about the same thing, but it was literally like I will strum one note on a guitar and I will sing that one note over and over and over again and just get my story out. This, I feel like, has more of a melodic line to it, and I appreciate it. I like the references to actors and celebrities of different capacities. I like the references to just like what's going on in his head. I always think like getting inside somebody's head is interesting, and this makes more sense to me than like trying to figure out the world. Because it's literally just, it's a very intimate experience. It's a human experience, and that's why I like it. A track like Candles, I really enjoyed, even though that is the longest track on here. I think had a really beautiful melodic line, and I like just listening to him freak out about stuff.
Yeah, but he's talking about the setting of this place and how it just has all these candles and candles and candles, and you see the almost childlike quality of him just being amazed by like the setting of this place. I think that's incredible. I like the track Linda Blair where he's talking about this Polish boxer and just going into his history and how his nation almost kind of like threw him in the dirt after he couldn't defeat Mike Tyson. It's what was kind of a heroic act. It's a cool story that I think to him must be normal, but to us it's like something we don't hear about that regularly, and that's kind of what makes it cool. Even though it could be like considered what a Wikipedia article is, it's so like just kind of
right. It's like this is the type of guy that reads Wikipedia articles for fun. I do that too sometimes.
But it's like it's such like a minuscule thing that I think it's cool, or such like a hidden thing. It's kind of cool.
But to him, it's normal because he knows about the history of boxing. That's, I think, another point that you brought up to me outside of recording. Common as Light was over the course of like 2 years, and that was a diary that was supposed to cover like 2 years, and it was 2 hours. And I like that this is encapsulating like a month or so. Yeah, it's like reading somebody's like monthly diary and just finding interest in that. I enjoy that because we're not focusing on a ton of huge issues. It's not like a pure comedy kind of stance. It's not like a Mount Erie kind of stance. It's like, this is what's happening. This is what has happened within a month of my life. These are the kind of things that I think about, some of the interesting points, and that's it. We move on.
Yeah. I also feel on this album, he's able to like fuck with the format more, which I think is really cool. Like he finds ways to like play with the song, which I think is nice. Like on the track This Is Not Possible, he's talking about touring in Germany and having to mess around with these venues and asking to go in his hotel early several times throughout the entire track. The band cuts off the rhythm and says "This is not possible" in the background, so like the vocals are kind of like faint because they're distant, and I just found it to be cool, the several cuts offs of "This is not possible" or "Yes, this is possible" throughout the entire track, to the point where he's just fucking around and saying, does our president need to be admitted to a mental institution, and just saying what his favorite movie is or his favorite song is, and the band responding to that I think is cool. The track Linda Blair, he's talking about this girl behind him and on this flight, and the fact she has this like cough and she sounds like Linda Blair from The Exorcist, and he replicates the on the mic, and he does it later on for no reason whatsoever. I just found it to be really cool, and it doesn't go on for like a second. It's more like 5 lines worth of as it fits the rhythm, and it fits really well, and it's a nice like break that I think it's actually really cool. Another moment, he talks about David Cassidy, because fame is a really important thing to him, or not fame, but his heroes, or I guess his inspirations are a really important thing, and that's something that always shines through in his work. And David Cassidy died, and he wanted to do a tribute of him, David Cassidy of the Partridge Family. And he just talked about what he liked about him and just several other acts and stuff like that. Going into, he said he wanted to do a cover of Come On Get Happy. And then they did a 1-minute cover of Come On Get Happy.
Immediately after.
And it's very passionate. I can't say it's like vocally good, but I love his like enthusiasm for it. His voice is not meant to do this
No,
type
but
of
it's
track.
funny.
It's really enjoyable though, just for him to go on. After that follows a tribute to AC/DC guitarist Malcolm Young, who died also on tour. So they did a cover of Rock and Roll Singer, his third cover of Rock and Roll Singer. He's done this 2 other times on 2 other projects, so this is his 3rd time covering it. But this time it has like different guitar work, because apparently him and Malcolm Young were like, he didn't like the fact that they, I guess, didn't use other production or something. As I was doing some minor research, and I just found that to be an interesting point about how he's just changing up the production a bit to have different types of shredding. Also, he holds like the hook for an extremely long time, just the vocal part for a ridiculous long time, and the band cuts out, and it's just him yelping for a single minute. That's a great moment. So for Joyful Hands actually shows a lot of like the depression that comes with Tor working, and how Tor is something that he's passionate. He isn't doing it for money, but it still brings him a lot of pain and a lot of tiredness. And this whole entire trip is basically a lot of sleep deprivation for him, and he snaps at people a couple times. But how he basically doesn't have that much time on tour. He has to wash his clothes inside his bathroom with dish soap that was labeled Soap for Joyful Hands, and all of his clothes didn't dry in time. He had to put it in a plastic bag and then put it in his bag and then run it to the airport. And then he hoped by the time he reached the hotel after his flight, the clothes would be dry. And it just basically shows a lot, kind of like the dark side of touring, when you're kind of like sick of it and you just kind of want to go home. You're homesick in a necessary way. Another like amazing moment I found on here, where he's talking with one of the promoters on This Is My Dinner, and she mentions the fact that the Snicker bar she has is her dinner because she can't afford anything else, and he offers to pay her some money, but she can't ethically accept it for some reason, and then it just kind of cuts off there. So like you get these bits of like other people that are cool throughout this entire record. I think you get a lot of story, and I think there's a lot of other mix-ups in here, and there's just so much to cover that I think it's better less to just end it here. I had a lot of fun with this. I think, in my view, Mark comes through as just a shining individual on this. Yes, he's kind of a dick. Yes, he's verbose. Yes, he is kind of snappy and old and rigid, but I find him to be funny and absurd and, I don't know, just unique in his own brightest way. This is a good display of character. I had a lot of fun with this.
It was better than I thought it was going to be.
Overall, I'm going to give this an excellent display of personality out of 10. Had a lot of fun with this. This is definitely been one of my favorite records of this year. I can't wait to see what Sun Kil Moon drops next, and if it's the same narrative stance as this, with even more mix-ups, I think would be really cool. If you want to hear us talk more about music, we host a weekly podcast called The Anthony and Todd Show every week. Apple Music, Spotify, links down below in the description. If you want to watch more of our reviews, I'm going to put the Father John Misty, God's Favorite Customer review on screen right now, so you can check that out. And if you want to talk with us about music, I'll put the link to our Discord down below, and you can chat with us about whatever you like. Enjoy the stern group of boyos who discuss music together. Until next time, guys, I've been Vincent.
I'm Trevor.
And see you, boyos.
Bye, everybody.